Washington's greatest accomplishment as president was persuading Americans that they did not need to distrust a strong executive. The American Revolution had been motivated in large part by perceived abuses of executive power by colonial governors and British officials. And in their revolutionary state constitutions, the American people had largely unmanned executive power. They had eliminated it, they had divided it between committees, they'd weakened governors. The government established at the central level under the Articles of Confederation had no executive branch at all. The great asset that Washington brought to the presidency was his reputation for integrity and disinterested civic virtue as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army, and he sought to transfer those characteristics to his conduct as president. He was very careful not to encroach on the powers of Congress, and he was very careful to avoid any of the pomp and ceremony that Americans attached to royalty. Anti-Federalists in particular were fearful that the president would become a kind of American monarch. But Washington always conducted himself with Republican simplicity and dignity and established the idea that we could have a strong executive that did not have any of the potential to abuse power like a king or any of his minions.
Nobody else could have done the job as well as George Washington did. George Washington as president was in many ways like George Washington as general during the Revolutionary War, in that his greatness was in the sum of his parts. It wasn't so much that Washington was the consummate politician. It wasn't so much that Washington simply had this air of authority and this air of leadership about him. It wasn't so much that Washington was methodical and careful and that he had an eye for detail. It was that Washington had all of these things, that Washington was a great leader, that Washington knew how to work with men, that Washington was very methodical and very thoughtful and very careful, but more than anything else, that Washington as president had a vision for the United States. He had a continental vision. He had a vision of unity that gave him the strength, that gave him the air of leadership that helped him to carry the nation through.